Hey guys, what's going on? Random measuring cup out here. It's your girl Aisha, otherwise known as Miss Champagne, and welcome to my channel, Growing by Faith. Okay, today we are going to be talking about the number one reason why most gardens fail, and it's not going to be what you think. Let's get started. I've come to the conclusion over my years of gardening that the number one cause of people quitting gardening or gardens really failing is not what I've heard many YouTubers talk about. You know, they tell you it's soil, which is important, but I don't think it's the number one reason. Watering is also important, but again, not the number one reason. Sunlight is also important for plant success, whether it's shade that's needed or full sun that's needed, that's going to be important. But again, I don't think that's the number one reason. For me, what I've noticed in my garden, the number one reason why a lot of the gardens fail is time. Time is so important in the garden. So I've started doing some garden consults, and there's two questions that I ask every client. The first question is, why are you gardening? I think it's important that everyone should ask themselves, why are you gardening in the first place? For me, I garden because I want to grow food for my family. But that wasn't why I started gardening. I started gardening because I felt inspired by a dream I had. I felt led by God that this was something I was supposed to do. But it started off as just a hobby. I wanted to see if I could go garden, what I could grow. But over the years, it's developed into something a little more important to I really want to grow enough food for me and my family. I would love to grow enough food to share with my community, but I'm not quite there yet. And the reason that I asked the question, why do you garden? Because it's going to have to do with the second question, which is, how much time do you have to give to the garden? In the beginning, gardening as a hobby, I had just a little bit of time, so I started with some containers, random fruits and vegetables, maybe some herbs, but I would spend a lot of time in the garden every day after work, on my off days, on the weekends. So my garden started to expand. When my reason or rationale for gardening changed, it became more of a priority, then it kind of moved up on that priority list. I need more time in the garden. I need more space to garden. But if you misjudge how much time you actually have to garden, that's going to be the number one reason why your garden doesn't make it. I see it all the time where people start off going big or going home. They have all these raised beds or in-ground beds, and they plant all the things, the tomatoes, the peppers, the squash, the corn, everything that they tell you you can grow during that time, they're trying to grow it. And what happens is you quickly realize that between life, work, kids, and trying to maintain your own health, and take care of a garden, things will start to suffer. And usually it's going to be what you put at the bottom of that priority list. So if your gardening is just a hobby, it's going to be at the bottom of your priority list. And what that means is I don't have time to get out there and check on my garden every day, to water my garden every day, to harvest whatever I'm growing, to preserve my harvest. All of that takes a substantial amount of time. So let me show you some things. So we are at my chicken coop. And I am going to put this feed them. One of the things that I did when I moved here was I knew that I wanted to expand to having animals. And I feel like the pathway for most people when they start gardening, if they have the ability, is now I grow my own food, now I want my own chickens, and that's adding more time. Chickens require a lot of time. Any livestock. You have to make sure that they have adequate food and water on a daily basis. I check my chickens every day. I have to collect eggs every day. Now I did. Big Red is agreeing with me. I did have a system to where their feeder could hold a week's worth of food. However, their door in and out of the coop is broke, so it won't go down. And recently we've discovered some mice or rat droppings inside of their food container. So what that means is now I have to go back to feeding them every day, because I don't want to put food in their big container just to be feeding the mice and rats. Chicken food is expensive, and I have to make sure that my chickens are getting what they need so that they can continue to lay eggs and give me what I need. But that's added to my time that I usually have in the morning. I also added rabbits to my homestead. I have 2 rabbits, a male and a female. They also require daily maintenance. Now, my older daughter does help me from time to time. These are actually her rabbits, with feeding and making sure they have adequate water. And then on a weekly basis, I try to also make sure that I clean out their cages. One of the things that I plan on doing to help me with time is trying to make things more efficient. Trying to make a way to where I don't have to clean out their cages as frequently, but my rabbits still have a nice clean environment. So I'll be changing the bottoms of these coops to have the open bottom where their droppings can actually just fall through, and that way their actual houses will stay clean and free of poop. I still have to come out here every day to make sure that they have water, especially during the heat of the summer, and then to make sure that they have food every single day. Again, adding more time. I also started a food forest, which I wanted to do the whole permaculture method, the natural organic method, where you create your own biomass by growing a lot of things that grow quickly, that will break down and help feed your soil, which will help feed your trees. However, the maintenance of this type of food forest system is extensive. This is my Mexican sunflower, like one of the most top recommended plants to grow if you're trying to do a food forest, because it grows extremely well in Florida, extremely fast, and breaks down rather quick when you chop it and drop it into your soil. However, that also requires a lot of time which I do not have. So one of the things that I'm doing, because I don't want to stop having a food forest, is I'm just going to be modifying the type of food forest I have. I'm going to be getting rid of a lot of my Mexican sunflower because I just don't have the time that it takes to chop it down and feed my food forest. So we're going to be condensing and making smaller islands. Obviously, I'm not getting rid of my full trees, but I am going to get rid of some of the support species that require a lot of my time because I just don't have it at this point in time. Some of the things I did in the garden, because again, my top priority is feeding my family. So I don't necessarily want to downsize my raised beds or my in-ground beds or the crops that I'm growing. But if you are only doing it for a hobby, then I would suggest you look at downsizing your beds. Maybe go down to just one bed. Grow crops that don't require a lot of maintenance, like herbs. They're a lot more forgiving if you forget to water them, or if you don't place them in the exact environment that they like, where a lot of the food requires a lot more maintenance. I have to get out here and check these plants every day. If I can't do it in the morning, I'm doing it in the evening. Because I'm an organic gardener, I don't spray my food, which means I have to come out here and physically check. This is slug damage. If you see stuff like this, the large holes, or snails. So those I can just pick off. If it's tiny holes, that's usually a caterpillar. Like this is probably a caterpillar. So I check under all of my leaves. And then with your brassicas and collard greens and stuff, the caterpillars are also light green. So they'll blend into these leaves extremely easy. But if you don't have the time to come out here and check for pests on a routine basis, which is pretty much every day, if you don't have the time to make sure that they're getting adequately watered every single day, especially in my climate, because it's Florida, it's hot. And if we didn't have a good rain, then there's a good chance that my raised beds are probably dry. And if they dry out, the plants are going to get stressed. They're more likely to get attacked by pests or die. You have to have time to fertilize. You have to have time to harvest these crops. Then I have to have time to either prepare, whether it's a large batch of tomatoes that I'm preserving, or harvesting my collard greens frequently so that they can grow back and continue to grow back. Harvesting my herbs frequently. Pulling weeds is another thing that's very time consuming. So because of all these different elements that all require a lot of time, people easily get overwhelmed. And then when they get overwhelmed, usually something's got to give, and it's going to be the thing that's least on your priority list. And for most people, that's going to be their garden. So people will start failing and then thinking that they're a bad gardener or I have a black thumb, when it's neither. You just really didn't have the time, or you misjudged the time that you did have. So if you are in that space where you're starting to feel overwhelmed, because gardening should be an activity of love and joy, where you really feel good about what you're doing. But if it's stressing you out, then something's not right. You really shouldn't be that stressed out in the garden. You're probably biting off more than you can chew. So scaling back is perfectly fine. We don't want you to just give up on gardening altogether. I just want to make sure that's not poop and that's just a piece of dirt. But it's okay to scale back. Even if it's just for a season. This broccoli rabe is growing amazingly, by the way. Of saying, all right, so this season I'm only going to grow in 2 of my raised beds, until you have more time. I compared myself to a lot of full-time gardeners when I don't have that flexibility. I have to work, I have kids, I have a husband, I have a house to maintain, I also have animals. So my time has to be utilized like till its fullest potential. There are some things that you can put in place to help utilize your time. I do have an irrigation system to kind of help with watering. Every morning it goes off. I still come out here to make sure that my soil is nice and damp, because systems fail, a rat could come and chew up some of the irrigation, and now I have a bed that's not getting watered. And if you're not out here every day or every other day, then you can miss that. And a week without water will definitely devastate and kill your plants that you're growing. So if you find yourself that you're struggling this season, I'm going to challenge you to ask yourself those two questions. Why are you gardening? Why are you growing food? If it's a priority in your life, then try to make it easier for yourself. What can you add? Adding irrigation, changing maybe the way you're gardening. Like for me, modifying my food forest system so that it's not as stressful, because I have a lot on my priority list. And having fruit trees is the top of that priority. As much as I would love the permaculture method and the look of it, but the maintenance is just too much for me. So just downsizing what you can, and then being realistic with yourself to say, how much time do you actually have to give to gardening? Not what you want to give. I could be out here all day if it was up to me, but I may have 1 to 2 hours max a day, if that, maybe 1 hour max, because I still have to, cook meals and keep the house clean, and do all the rest of the things that I need to do besides working. For you, it may just be 30 minutes. Maybe as soon as you get off work, or 30 minutes before you go into work, you have time to come out here and check. 30 minutes goes by quick in the garden. Any gardener can tell you, on a good Saturday, I can get lost in time out here and easily be out here 4 hours and then still feel like I got nothing done. Could just be me and my ADHD, but be real with yourself. How much time can you realistically give to the garden without sacrificing other things that also need your time, like yourself, your family? And I guarantee you'll have a more successful garden season, and you'll also enjoy it a lot more. So that's all that I had to really talk about today. I hope you got something out of today's content. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Drop a comment down below. What have you struggled with this gardening season, and was time one of them? What is the main reason that you are gardening or growing food? All right, till next time. Love you guys.